Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency. My name is Jelena Trkulja, and as the editorial director of Qatar Creates Talks, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to QC Talks, a signature program of Qatar Creates, a year-round cultural platform that champions art, architecture, design, fashion, film, and heritage in Qatar and beyond. Qatar Creates is more than a calendar of events, it's a movement that brings together the world's leading creatives and thinkers with the local community, fostering new connections, collaborations, and cultural experiences that are both global in ambition and deeply rooted in place. At the heart of Qatar Creates is a dialogue, meaningful, critical, and bold. These panel discussions are dedicated to exploring the power of creativity in shaping the world we live in. Today, we begin with the first of the 5 talks. Over the next few days, there will be 4 more discussions, and I invite you all to visit Qatar Creates' website and sign up for them if you have not already done so, and also to leave your email address in case you're not on our mailing list so that you stay up to date with everything that is happening during this week. Please visit our site and sign up then. And now I would like to extend my deepest thanks to Dean Amir Berbić and his entire team at VCUarts Qatar for so generously hosting this event. Your unwavering support, creativity, and commitment to fostering dialogue and innovation make you an invaluable partner in all of our artistic and intellectual endeavors. And we're truly grateful for your collaboration and your friendship. And now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dean Amir to introduce the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jelena. I appreciate our friendship and partnership as well. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to Virginia Commonwealth University School of the Arts in Qatar. We are truly honored to host Whispers of Time and Nature, Arte Povera, and the Art of Today, an event that brings together 2 influential voices in the world of contemporary art, the celebrated sculptor and artist Giuseppe Penone, and the visionary curator and art historian Hans Ulrich Obrist, who will be moderating today's conversation. It is my distinct honor to welcome Her Excellency Sheikh Al-Mayasa bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, chairperson of Qatar Museums. It is always an honor to have you here. Your Excellency, your vision and leadership have profoundly shaped the arts in Qatar and beyond. Thank you for your presence this morning and for your tireless dedication to nurturing creativity, fostering engagement, and empowering the next generation through the arts. We are honored to be on that journey together with you as a school. As many of you know, Giuseppe Penone is a leading figure of the Arte Povera movement, a movement that embraces the raw beauty of natural materials and explores the poetic dialogue between human presence and the natural world. His work invites us to reflect on time, transformation, and the intricate processes that connect art and nature. Just earlier this month, Mr. Penone's latest exhibition, Thoughts in the Roots, opened at the Serpentine South Gallery in London's Kensington Gardens. Co-produced by Qatar Museums, this remarkable exhibition spans works from 1969 to the present, offering a profound look at his lifelong engagement with organic forms and natural processes. It will remain on view throughout the summer. And since many of us from VCUQ will be in London in June with VCUarts Qatar's presentation at the London Design Biennial, I'm very much looking forward to experiencing the exhibition in person. Today's conversation offers a rare and meaningful opportunity to engage directly with Mr. Penone and his ideas on nature, time, the human spirit, and the artistic process. This event is made possible through the continued collaboration, as Dr. Jelena explained, between VCUarts Qatar and Qatar Museums. We are proud to be associated with Qatar Creates and to contribute to a platform that champions creative expression and cross-disciplinary dialogue. Our shared mission is to cultivate a dynamic artistic ecosystem, one that connects Qatar's vibrant creative landscape with the global art world. We are deeply grateful to Qatar Museums for their trust, support, and partnership. We're delighted to host this conversation as part of our ongoing commitment to opening our doors to global discourse and providing our students, alumni, and wider community access to some of the most important voices in contemporary art. We hope this event serves as a springboard for future participation in Qatar Creates and similar initiatives. Thank you all for joining us today. Please settle in and enjoy what promises to be a rich, inspiring, and thought-provoking discussion. And now I would like to welcome Mr. Penone and Mr. Obrist. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your introduction. Thank you so much to Your Excellency Sheikh Al-Mayasa. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited to be here at Qatar Creates, which brings all the disciplines together. I think if you want to address the big topics of our time, it's necessary to build bridges between all the disciplines, and that's, of course, what Giuseppe's work has done for such a long time. It's a great honor to be here in conversation with Giuseppe. I think it's our 14th interview today. We started, I met Giuseppe when I was like 17 years old as a teenager in Torino when I traveled there by night train, and we've been in conversation ever since. We just opened in London the exhibition, actually Thoughts in the Roots, which is a collaboration between the Serpentine and Qatar Museum. And this will, of course, be the main topic of today's conversation. But we're also, of course, going to talk about many more things. We're going to talk about also Giuseppe's realized and unrealized projects. But before I start with the first questions, I wanted to ask you all to give Giuseppe Penone a very warm welcome.
Thank you. Grazie.
Now, Giuseppe has created an expansive body of work that encompasses sculptures, drawings, painting, installation, and photography, born in Garesio, which is a very small village near Cuneo in Italy. He is deeply influenced by the forest region of northern Italy, and the vegetal world is, of course, a central subject for the work. And we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to go from the vegetable world into the mineral world in the second part of the conversation. I thought it would be interesting, as this is the first time, Giuseppe, that you do a conversation here, that we maybe begin with the beginning. You once told me that it all began in the late 60s, your work, 68, 69, and that you analyzed a reality which had changed and was changing, that you did not want anymore to accept certain conventions. So I wanted to begin with that and to ask you to tell us a little bit how it all began, how you came to art, and this idea maybe that one can somehow change the conventions of how to look.
Yeah, my interest was sculpture. And sculpture is something that we can think is static because the work or the material, it gives a kind of stability to the material. This is the general idea of sculpture. But if we look inside to the reality, we see that all is fluid. All the more stable material is fluid. So based on this intuition, I think to work with tree that when you see, it look like stable elements, but in the time you have a fluidity. And is a material that can be worked by the hand, like the clay in a way. So this intuition pushed me to do a series of work that I have done on the growing of the tree, and by consequence, and understood of the material of the wood, and where I found inside of the wood the little tree that it was enveloped by the growing of the tree himself.
Now also your work, of course, from the beginning was associated to Arte Povera, and we talked about that earlier this morning, that actually Karol and Christoph Bagakiev said the other day that it's more a state of mind, and you also confirmed that it's clearly not a movement. It's not, because a movement, an art movement would have a manifesto. You also once told me that Arte Povera for you was, in a way, the freedom to use everything. Can you tell us more about that?
Arte Povera, it was an idea. It was a group of people that work in different way, but with, I think the element that was common to everybody was the idea to work in breaking the convention of the art vision, the traditional art vision. And this was done from the artists in different way. Each one have done in different way. My way, it was to look to the nature, to this idea of sculptural material that is movement. The other one have done more work more involved in social context or in energy of chemical energy or in the general view of the force of the nature. So each one have a different way to think about this idea. And it was something that was, this word, Arte Povera, it was something very strong because, especially in Italy, we don't have at that time museum and culture contest were for the expression. And this word became a space, a mind space, where there is still living. It is stronger than a physical space in a way.
Thank you so much. Very beautiful. Now, when you came to London to actually visit the Serpentine, the first time we met there was when we had Peter Zumthor. We built pavilions at the Serpentine every year in front of the gallery. It's started with Zaha Hadid in 2000, when she gave the motto, that there should be no end to experimentation. And the year you came was actually Peter Zumthor. It was a garden, Hortus Conclusus by Pete Udorf. It was like a cloister situation, which Zumthor created, a very silent, quiet space in Kensington Garden. We did a marathon about one of our knowledge festivals, about the topic of the garden. And already then we started to have conversations about the insides and the outside. And then over the years there were several site visits, and you said you very much wanted to bring actually the park, because the Serpentine is in Kensington Gardens, in a big park. You wanted to bring the park into the gallery, and you wanted to also bring, in a way, the art from the gallery into the park. Can you tell us about that first visit, which is really the origin of the show?
Yeah, it's true that this marathon about the idea of the garden was something that inspired me in a way. So, and when we visited the space, the park, and the gallery, I figured that it was possible to install the work in the park that was in dialogue with the nature, with the context of the tree, of the grass, and with the people that is working there in the idea of fluidity, and to have a kind of thinking and reflection about nature inside of the gallery. And it was very easy in a way, because in the space of the Serpentine there is this central space that became like a chapel. And I think to cover the wall of leaves or of laurel leaves that smell, that have to give an idea of you inspire the smell of the work when you are in the space, and there is a kind of total exchange of your life with the material of the work. So this was the central work, and around that I have showed different work that can have a connection with the idea of the nature and also of this central piece. So it was in a way easy to give a kind of centrality to the work, because it was something about the nature, about the park, the environment around the Serpentine helped me for that.
And it's also interesting because you observed that the fact, that the gallery has free admission, because for us it's very important that visitors who might also not visit the museum otherwise can come and see the exhibition like they would visit the park. So there is actually no kind of ticket desk. People can just walk in. So this fluidity between inside and outside is also enabled by that. And one of the first works, and in the background you of course have these images, and you will see at a certain moment an image actually of gesti vegetali, the vegetal gestures. And that was an early idea also you had for the show, to connect the inside and the outside. And these are bronze elements that in a way replicate the gestures made on clay sculptures, very much capturing the movement in a way of the hand. And it's very much a piece which is about us being in communion with the environment. Basically, the human body and the plants come together, and there is almost a metamorphosis.
Yeah, this, but it's a work that is not so far away from the first work that one of the first work that I have done, where I put my hand on a tree, thinking that if I have the time to stay there, the tree will be shaped around my hand. So this was the same idea in a way, but it was about the idea of the entire body. So the sculpture, the bronze elements, it became like a tool where that is completed with the growing of the bushes, of the plants.
And then, of course, the idea of the central space, as you said, is almost like a chapel. And your idea there was always to bring in hundreds of thousands of leaves into that space. Respirare l'ombra wraps really the central space of the gallery with these laurel leaves, and it creates almost like a tree canopy. And what is so amazing is that already when one enters the gallery, at the very beginning, before entering that space, there is the scent, no? And of course, Margaret Mead pointed out a long time ago, I think in the 50s, that if you want to bind visitors more to exhibitions, that it's important that it doesn't only address the visual sense, but that it's a more multisensory kind of environment. Can you tell us about this work, Respira l'ombra, and your idea of bringing these leaves into the inside?
The basic idea of this work, it was that as I told before, the fluidity of elements is a material and that became a sculpture. And I think that the breath and the word that we tell have a form that is a different volume of gas that go outside, enveloped by the surrounded air that are in the space. So this became like a sculpture. And this is a sculpture that it starts when we, the first moment of our life until the end of our life. So it is a sculpture that we produce for all the time. And based on that idea, I have done two kinds of work. One in 78, where that was like a big vase with the print of the body and of the mouth, like the representation of a breath. And this was espirazione. It was the push outside the air. And in 99, I have done the second moment, or the first moment of the respiration, that is when you take the air in your body. So it was this idea of exchange, also thinking that a breath is something that connects the interior of your body with the space that surrounds you. So this idea of the scent is very important for this work, because it gives you this idea of appartenenza, of
belonging.
Yes, with the reality that surrounds you.
And the breath, of course, is a volume of air, as you showed us many times since the 70s. It's a sculpture that, in a way, yeah, it's probably the sculpture which accompanies us most throughout our lives, no? Is the breath, and that also plays a big role in another kind of very central work in the exhibition, which is Soffio di Foglie, A Breath of Leaves, where it's about lying down on the pile and you breathe the air into them. Can you tell us about Soffio di Foglie? That's literally a next step in terms of breathing and the leaves.
It's a work that I have done also in the 80, in the second part of 80. I don't remember exactly the date. But it was the idea of that the breath is compared to the body, have no weight. But when I want to give to visualize the form of the breath. So I think that I can do with little leaves, where I go down in the leaves and I start to breathe, and the breath, when I come up, had a form like the imprint of my body inside of the leaf. So it became something visible, like the same of the visibility of the body.
And of course, trees are very central in the park, in Kensington Gardens, but trees are also very central in the exhibition, both inside and outside. And that again goes back to your very beginning, because in the late 60s you had this epiphany about trees, when you realized that trees are a life form that stores time within their structure. Can you tell us about the day maybe you had this epiphany about trees and what you saw there?
No, it was this idea of fluidity of the material, that it can be shaped in terms of sculpture, but also of cooperation between the material and the action of the sculptor. And it was two beings that it was equal in a way. My action and the action of the tree that was growing. So it was I thinking that an idea of equity between the man and the nature. This was the starter point. After, in the time, I have done, I know better the technique of fusion in bronze, and I realized how is close the bronze to the vegetal in the technique of the fusion, but also in the aspect of the bronze, because the bronze is a material that it take a color. It depends on the place where it's installed. If it's closer to the sea, it became green. If it's in a camp, probably became brown. So it change and it take different color, but they are always very close to the vegetation, to the vegetal elements. And this suggested me to do big tree in bronze, and the tree that I have showed in London have a stone on the branches. And this I have done to indicate the force of the light and the attraction of the light that can sollevare, that can elevate the weight, a very high weight. And the stone are in the intersection between the trunk and the branches to indicate that. So there is this contrast between the gravity and the idea of the dark and the elevation and the idea of the light, the energy of the light, that it became also the energy of the life.
So there is in the exhibition two pieces with trees. There is the albero folgorato, and then, as you described, the idea di pietra with the stones. And it's not only that the stones are elevated, there are also river stones actually placed on the ground. Can you tell us about this installation? Because it works in an amazing way in London. People really, it has already over the last 2 or 3 weeks become a gathering point. People meet there, people have meetings there, exchange.
But the stone that surround the tree, it was to indicate this idea of these stones are waiting, some form of life that can elevate them. But it became, in this case, also a place where people can stay, can add his weight to the weight of the stone. So it's the reason of the river stone is because the river he worked the stone like the technique of the sculpture in stone is very similar to what happened in a river for a stone, because it is broken. There is sand that with water that polish the surface. So it's something that's very close. And also the fact that the stone in himself have a lot of crystal that give the billion and billion of crystal inside of a stone. Is like the idea that we have in our mind, that is billion and billion of idea in each moment of our life, of our moment. And so there's a connection between the idea of the brain and the idea of the stone.
So the ideas we generate in our thoughts, you compare them to the crystals that form the stone, and then with albero folgorato, it's about light. Gold is light, and you say light is life. It's a tree which was struck by a lightning, and you then created this tree in bronze. Can you tell us about the genesis of albero folgorato? What prompted that work?
It was when you see a light in the sky, it became like a branch, the form of the light, and this tree that was lighted by it have a form that connect the soil with the sky, and is between the sky and the soil, and the light go inside of the tree and go in the earth like the roots of the tree. So there is the idea to connect together two elements, the soil and the sky, and it's something that it give a kind of identity, not identity, of similarity between different elements, because the form of the energy, it can be the form of a branch of a tree, and also of the form of our vein in our body. So it is forms that are present in the world and have a similar function.
You also created a beautiful instruction piece, which for our Back to Earth project, which I'm going to read here, which one can realize whenever one encounters a tree. So you wrote, approach a tree, grab its trunk with your hand, wait for its growth to envelop your hand, put the time of your life in relation with the beings around you. Now, the idea of the trees, I was actually thinking this morning, last year when I came for Qatar Create, I was attending a conference which happened here on the occasion of the Donald Judd Dan Flavin show, which had a lot to do with minimalism. And it's kind of interesting that at the moment when you started to work with trees was, of course, a moment when there was a very strong presence now of minimalism in art discourse. And you once told me that, during those years, where there was all this interest in minimalist art, which has, of course, to do with industrial and geometric shapes, this idea of taking a beam with a geometric shape and then finding this organic element within it was a way for you to engage with it, but also to be very different. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it seems so interesting that that happened.
It happened because there was this idea to work, in general, in the art, to work with elements that are artificial, done by the activity of the man. And there's a production of a reality, of elements, real elements that was done by man. But in the meantime, you have the production of elements that are from nature, that are not artificial. So this contrast pushed me to think that it was possible to make organic, to reveal the organic life that was inside of a geometric form like a beam. So it was also something that was possible because as I think it, that the tree grew in the time that it was a fluid material, and I can see inside of the wood, like the note, for example, is the section of a branch. So from this understood, I figured it was possible to found inside of the tree the form, south of the beam, the form of the tree following a ring of his growing that correspond to the 1 year of his life. So it was to reveal the form of the tree in a specific time of his life.
Now we are also working on a book which will accompany this exhibition, and in the whole process of the show, working on the book, drawing played a very big role. In all our meetings we had, you made drawings and sketches. It seems to be a very daily practice. You have a very important collection of drawings in the Centre Georges Pompidou, which was celebrated in an exhibition. I wanted to ask you a little bit about this fascination for drawing, where you say that you're constantly kind of renewed by this surprise of the materiality of the drawing, and where also drawing and writing often go together, no?
Yeah, but the fascination of the drawing is that with something that is nothing like a charcoal, like a dirty material, you can do something that is very precious. It is like just the way to organize this material on the paper, on the sheet of paper. It gives you a value that is a value of the thinking that is more precious than any kind of than gold and diamond. It became something that enrich your mind. It is the real enrichment of the man is the thinking, it's not the material.
And of course the fluidity, the fluctuation, you said that the first intuition or the first idea for a work of art written on a sheet of paper testifies to the fluctuation of the imagination before it kind of solidifies into a form, no? In a way. The drawing is before it becomes solid.
Yes. No, the drawing is, you have different form of drawing. You have just the note of the thinking. You are the understood of a form. You followed. You studied the form of an object of a landscape. Is a suggestion, but is also something that is very closely to a form that appears on our life for each touch that we do each day. we touch material and we give an imprint of our hand on the space. So this idea to have a kind of drawing that surrounds you in the space and you produce also for all the time of your life, like the breath, it pushed me to do this kind of drawing that I have done in the Serpentine. That is a drawing that I call pressione. There is a pressure. That was done on the wall, and became also this a drawing that is closer to the vegetal. It's not so clear if it's a vegetal, if it's animal, is a form that is present in different elements of the nature.
And I remember we had a catalog meeting with the co-curator of the exhibition, with Claude Adjin and with Issa Shirawi from Qatar Museum in London, and you told us about books also as a medium for your art. So the catalog for the show is almost going to be an artist book. There is going to be a composition by your composer friend Ludovico Einaudi. So the exhibition has not only scent, but it also has sound. Through Ludovico, it has your drawings, which are, make it into an artist book. And you've been working on artist book since the late 60s. You connected through the artist book also the link to literature. There is a whole connection to Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of the book as a medium?
A book is is a form that is like the hand that is closed and open. So it's something that is done for the form of your hand. And when you touch a book, you give the imprint that, as I said before, like on the object. And this, but you touch the surface and you give part of your body on the surface that you touch, but also you take some little elements of the material that you touch. And after these elements, you put on the other elements with this action that of your life. So it's an idea of covering the reality with the element that of your body and of the experience of your life.
And then, of course, the connection to poetry and to literature happens in the book. Yeah, you created this Walt Whitman Leaves of Grass kind of connection, no? Where you said that the poetry of Whitman inspired you. I always think it's important to connect art and poetry. It would be great to hear more about that.
But Leaves of Grass is a book that was done from Whitman have produced the real book. It's not just the writing of the poetry, but he have done also the print of the book and the cover of the book. So he touched each book that he have done with his hand. So it was this idea of a presence in the material of the book himself, of the body and the action of Whitman. And this it pushed me to do I take a canvas and I reproduce the color of the cover of the Whitman book. I have a first edition of his book, and I covered the canvas with the fingerprint, and it became like a landscape where the leaves of the landscape of the tree are the imprint of the finger. The finger is oval, like very close to a form of leaves. So it's there is a relation also in that case between animals, vegetals, and between the form.
And we talked a lot about trees, we talked about grass, we talked a lot about the vegetal, and yesterday you visited the desert here, and
yes.
You were inspired to maybe talk today also here a little bit about the mineral aspect in your work, and that is something which has appeared also since the very beginning, works where sand appears.
I am Italian, I am, and this part of the world the idea of the nature is vegetal in general. When you speak about nature, it's vegetal. But nature is also stone, is also sand, is what surrounds the man. And it was when you come in a country like Qatar, you feel that the nature is mineral too, like elements that we have in our body. So this to relate my body and my work to this idea of nature is something that's very interesting and exciting for me. I have done in some work this because I found in the marble slate I have this carved and reveal the vein of the marble, like to connect the form of the vein of a stone, of a marble, to the vein of our body. So it's something that is part of my work, this thinking, and this is very interesting, and is also it open another possibility of or understood of the reality for my work.
We are almost out of time. I have 2 or 3 last questions, and then we can open it up for questions from all of you. I always think it's interesting to hear from artists about their unrealized projects, right? Because we know a great deal about architects' unrealized projects because they do publish them, like architecture has competitions, and so we can read about them and study them. And very often, actually, in architecture, you know, an unrealized project gets realized later on because somebody reads about an unrealized project which lost the competition, and then, or an architect also revisits an unrealized project. But in art, there is this complete lack of knowledge that we know almost nothing about the unrealized projects of the most well-known artists like Giuseppe in the world. And of course, the range, you know, of the unrealized project, why a project is unrealized, are very wide. It can be a project which is too big to be realized, too expensive to be realized, utopic, it can be a dream. It can also be a project which is eventually unrealizable, but it can also be very concrete utopias, projects which actually could be realized if only people would know about it. So kind of talking about unrealized projects is often also there in order to maybe create an awareness that they could happen. Then there's, of course, projects which sometimes also don't happen because one doesn't dare to do them. I mean, my friend Doris Lessing, the late Nobel Prize writer in London, once told me, you know, she had these books, you know, sometimes she wanted to write them, but then, you know, at the end she wrote them, but, you know, books one wouldn't have dared to write. So that's another reason why it's unrealized. And then there is also projects which are just forgotten, no? I mean, in the analog world, it would be a forgotten project somewhere in a locker, you know, in the studio, or in the digital world, it might be a file, you know, in the laptop or in our, you know, smartphone somewhere, a forgotten file. So many reasons why a project is unrealized. And I know that you have one unrealized project which I think is particularly exciting, which is, and it's particularly exciting to talk about it at the moment when, you know, we talk about a big exhibition in a park in London. And that's actually your project to do, in a way, your own park, the Giuseppe Penone Park. And that park would have a path as its central idea, and then it would sort of spread. Can you tell us about this idea?
No, this idea, it was related to the, when you see the insect that go on a tree, they go up and they come down. So they, and a path have a form also of a tree or a branch. So it's possible to do in a very large landscape a form of tree where you have a path that have the form of the branches, and the work that can be installed in terms of sculpture or installation became like the fruits of the tree. This is an idea that need to be done in very large surface, so it's not so easy to realize, so it's an unrealized project. But there are sometimes also other works that that is not so big, that can be also unrealized project. And I had an unrealized project that I realized, and it was related to work that I have done in 80. That was a stone that I take in the river, and I go up in the mountain where was a quarry. I take a block of the stone of the same kind, and I reproduce exactly the stone of the river, with the idea that the process of the river was very close to the process of the sculpture in stone. And I have done that, and I had the idea to realize that with a grain of sand. And it was the idea to realize this, to reproduce 2 grains identically of sand and to put that in the desert. This was the basic idea. And it was not realized until I have done a show in Grenoble. There was an institute of technology. And with the help of the physician of Grenoble, I have done these 2 grains of sand. So sometimes it happened that an unrealized project is done.
Very last question. We are here at a school, and I kind of thought, you know, when I was listening to the introduction of the dean, that it would be interesting that we connected, you know, to the school. So I want to move from Walt Whitman to Rainer Maria Rilke, the poet who wrote a wonderful little book, which is an advice to a young poet. I want to ask you about your advice to a young art student today, and maybe also just about your teaching experience, because you have been teaching for a long time. When we met in Paris, I remember you were teaching at the École des Beaux-Arts, at the art school there. Yeah, so I thought it would be interesting here in this specific context to hear you talk about that.
But art is something that is not possible to teach in a way, because it's astonishment that is about the reality, that is personal. And each one have a different kind of perception of the reality. So it's very important that each artist have a specific way to see the reality. Is that is the value of the art that enriches us. So what I tell to the young people, it was to try to find a way, a personal way, to express the deeper feeling of the reality and of the astonishment that we can have on the reality. The reality is all, is the nature, but is also the society, is also the human activity. So but what is very important is that they have to be completely involved in this action. If no, it's just an idea that can be interesting, but have not a function for other people. So art is a kind of expression that is, and visual art is a very strong expression, because you can see work that are 30,000 years, like the painting that you can have in the Grotte Chauvet in France, and you don't know why this painting was done, but you can understand something of the astonishment that the painter, that he drew the animals, is the same astonishment that you can have looking the reality. So in this, you can you can identify your mind with the mind of this man that we don't know. It's something that is not possible with writing, with other form of expression. It's possible with the visual art. So it's a fantastic word, the visual art.
There really could not be a more wonderful conclusion. Giuseppe, thank you so much. Thank you all.
Grazie.
And it's now the moment to open it up, if there are questions or comments. Yes, do we need a microphone? Yeah, I think there is a microphone coming.
That was absolutely fascinating, and I think what you said about the fact that you are from Italy and your environment was the vegetal world, which is why your art, of course, is an expression of that. Now, for people who live in different parts of the world, for instance, in this region, in the Middle East, where the environment is, as you said, mineral, isn't the perspective to art or the perspective to interpretation is completely different than that of yours? Would that be the reality, or would that be dictated by other aspects, including the influences that you see today, where thanks to whatever, television, etc., you know the rest of the world? How does that change?
Mi aiuti a capire?
Could you, because we couldn't hear it very well.
Oh, I see, sorry.
The perspective,
Okay.
I could hear it until perspective, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying that your perspective is a sort of a vegetal
Sì, la tua
environment.
prospettiva viene del vegetale, la tua prospettiva.
Yeah,
Sì.
and of course your art is very much reflecting that.
E il tuo arte riflette a questo.
And then from somebody who's from this region, where the environment is mineral, as you
In
said,
questa regione, in questo
would that be a
mondo
totally
dove-
different interpretation of art in that sense, or would they see the world very differently than what you would see it?
Sì, se in questo contesto qui che chi minerale si vede il mondo in un modo differente.
It's true that it's completely different, but as I tell, in our body we have elements that are mineral. We have iron, we have calcium, we have a lot of mineral in our body. There's a little part, but is a fundamental part for our life. And we are connected with the mineral that surrounded us. So to stay in a context where a mineral is dominant, this is, in a way, is fantastic. It's like when you go inside of a mountain that you are surrounded by the cave, by the material of the mountain. In a way, there is a different feeling, but it's the same. When you go inside of a cave, you are closed inside of the material himself. If you go in the desert, you are not closed, but you are part of the sand that is under your feet. So it's and you have the sky around that give you also the idea of to be inside of a cosmos. This is something that relates a different aspect, a different feeling of the experience of our life.
Thank you. Do we have more questions? Yes, if you can have the microphone here.
I have a question, Mr.
Non
Penone.
capisco mai bene quello che dicono.
Come?
Non capisco mai bene quello che dicono. Quindi
Posso
se mi
tradurre?
se mi
Sì, sì.
traduci.
I have a question about permanence, about the idea of permanence in your work, as you deal so much with nature. And we keep seeing Breath of Leaves on the screen, which is a very impermanent work. And I keep thinking of one of my favorites, which is, I think it's called Disegno d'acqua in Torino, where the fingerprint comes on the pond of water. So I wonder, some of your works are there for many years outside and others are there for a second, what your relationship with the idea of art being permanent is.
Sì, infatti la questione è sulla permanenza e sul rapporto anche con l'effemero, perché
Sì,
dice
sì.
che opere come il soffio, il disegno d'acqua, che sono opere no, che sono evidentemente sull'effemero, però dopo ci sono opere permanenza. Se tu potessi parlare su questo rapporto. Sì.
No, it's true that the problem of the art in general is the permanence. It's something that is stable, that you can find in the time, is the idea of the present. We have the past, we have the future, and we have the present, but the present is never clear when in our life, because when we think we tell present, we are already in the past, and we wait the future. So the art is also the interest of the art is to give a present in the reality of our life. And is a present for the artist that will be is projected in the time. I tell that because I think the leaves are present. Is something that we can think is not stable, but they are present in the nature. Each year we have new leaves. A plant is producing leaves, so this is something that is very present. And also in like the hair of the ball of hair that are inside of the water, and the design and imprint that you mentioned, this is always present in the water that you can see from the fish, it's something that is and the idea to make a work with these elements that are so unstable in a way is a kind of the sfida,
a challenge?
Challenge for the idea of the sculpture. For that reason, I have done this kind of work.
We have a question in the front row.
I can also ask in Italian and then translate it in English, if you prefer. Sarebbe una domanda, diciamo, un po' più personale, ma quando conosco il suo lavoro e sento cosa dice, vedo un rapporto molto profondo fra la natura e l'essere umano, in un senso che la frontiera, la barriera sparisce, il corpo diventa spazio. E mi fa anche pensare alla legge di Hermes che dice as above as below, e c'è una forma di spiritualità che è molto presente nel suo lavoro, in come io lo sento, e volevo chiedere se questa cosa è presente nella sua vita, se lo vede veramente il suo lavoro come una forma di preghiera, se ha un'attività, diciamo, di forse anche meditazione, perché lei parla anche di energia, di luce, del rapporto fra il cielo e la terra. Tutti questi elementi sono una forma di legame alla natura in un modo molto spirituale. I'll translate it, try to say it briefly in English. So I was saying maybe this is a more personal question because knowing the work of Giuseppe Penone that I admire for years, I see this very deep relationship between the human body and nature, where the barrier and the frontier disappears between the physical body and the connection to nature. It becomes more something like space, and it makes me think of one of the laws of the universe of Hermes, who speaks about as above as below. So this, for example, today, Giuseppe Penone is speaking about the lightning, which has the same form of the roots and the trees, and the connection between the sky and the earth. All of these elements makes me think of a very like old, maybe spirituality oriented from the Orient, like maybe the Buddhism or meditation, but this very deep connection to nature in the sense of energy.
Thank you for the question. This is not the intention of the work. I don't want to do una preghiera, a prayer, but I think if you work with the material and you try to understand the material, you have a kind of astonishment on the reality that surrounds you, and this is something that is the base of the perception also for the poetry. That is the first pride in any kind of religion, is the astonishment of the reality that surrounds us and the world. That, so if you work with this idea, you work with the material, and this is enough to discover also other kind of value that we discover in the time of our life. Is a way to understand the reality.
We can take one last question. I think there was one in the front row. Yeah, you can have the microphone.
sono interessata a quello scarto che c'è tra la visualizzazione, il germogliare dell'idea e poi l'espressione dell'idea. In quello scarto che cosa succede? Che è un po' simile poi allo scarto della traduzione, no? Tra una lingua e l'altra. I'm very interested about understanding the gap of when you have the idea and then the expression of that idea creatively and artistically, what happens. And if there's a similar gap between when you are working and translating from one language to the other one.
But a work is a kind of synthesis. And when you have an idea, after the possibility to express the idea, it can be done in different way. You have to find, especially for visual art, that you have to find a kind of synthesis in the form. And this synthesis, it happens by exclusion. You start to exclude. All is not enough strong and attractive also, because if it's not attractive, you have no language, you have no expression. So there is a process that is something that can be done in a way that is not thinking, but it can happen very easily, or it can happen with a selection of the form through the thinking. But the basic idea for a good artwork is the synthesis, is the way to synthesize in an object a lot of ideas.
Thank you all so much for the questions. I think we are out of time. Is that correct? Or can we take one or two more? Yeah, there seems to be one urgent question here. Very last one.
Hello. So in most of your work, you are re-sculpting what's already sculpted, like what already nature has sculpted. So I wanted to ask, what is your relation with the actual sculptor, and how does your relation influence your work?
Could you say it? I will translate it sentence by sentence. Yeah.
You are already re-sculpting what's already sculpted in
Tu
nature.
stai risculturando cosa hai sculptato?
So I wanted to ask, what is your relationship with the actual sculptor, and how does this influence you in your
Sculptor o
work?
sculpture?
What?
Sculptor.
Sculptor.
Sculptor. Qual è il tuo attuale rapporto col scultore?
Ma,
Eventualmente talvolta che tu dici anche che anche l'albero è il scultore, no?
sì, no,
I'm sorry because my Italian is not perfect. So I try my best.
No, I think that the sculpture is something that is a form in the space, and when you produce, it's very difficult to define. Also, a painting we can define. It can be a sculpture in a way because it's an object, but. Sculpture, what is the specificity of a sculpture is that when you do the drawing, for example, of a chair, is a drawing. But if you produce a chair, is a chair first to be a sculpture. So if you do a chair with the intention of the sculpture, it must be a chair that have to make a kind of thinking. If no, is an object that you can use. So this is it's something that we have to consider when you think in sculpture. But the sculpture need to be done for a necessity. And for example, a tree is a wonderful sculpture because each part of the branches of a tree have a necessity, and it's something that is a volume in the space. So is in a way is an exemplar, a fantastic example of sculpture because he have the necessity of his life, the form of the tree.
Thank you all so much for your questions, and thanks, Giuseppe, for the answers.
Grazie.
And I want to say one last thing. I keep thinking about this question, of yours of permanence, because it's so fascinating that actually we've had so many letters of people who already ask us that these trees should stay longer, and so the idea of permanence. But also, I think it's interesting because it reminds me of something the playwright Eugène Ionesco told me many, many years ago, the late Eugène Ionesco, when he said that not only bronze can be permanent, and I think it's interesting, he was saying, a theater play can be permanent. His Cantatrice Chauve has been performed for 50 or 60 years every night, and at the same time, Respirare l'ombra, the piece with the leaves, the amazing chapel of Giuseppe, these are leaves. They are not permanent, but the piece could be permanent because it could be an instruction piece. I think the question of permanence is a really topic to be discussed more. And last but not least, I wanted to also mention that for the exhibition, Giuseppe has recreated for the first time a very rarely seen piece, which is a piece from the very beginning of his work, when he counted as a young artist the number of days he had been on the planet, and it's called 8,046 giorni nel cielo, 8,046 days in the sky. So it connects also to the answer he gave you to the first question, the cosmic aspect, the sky around us. So not 8,046 days on the earth, no, 8,046 days in the sky. That's from 69. And then for the day of the opening at the Serpentine, Giuseppe updated this piece to 28,490 days in the sky. So now we've had several days since the opening. So today we can celebrate here a very special occasion. We can celebrate Giuseppe Penone's 28,508 days in the sky. A big round of applause for Giuseppe Penone.